Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode from GuigLit, your YouTube channel for all things books, beards and beyond. Today is a special request video on the strange case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, a very popular book at GCSE English Literature examination level, and we're going to be looking at 10 quotes you need to know for this book. So as always, give this a thumbs up, give this a share and tap the bell icon to find more videos from GuigLit. Thank you for all your contributions and all of your support. It really means a lot. So as always, what can you do with this video? Make sure to take notes, make sure to test yourself, and make sure to repeat viewings, okay? To know quotes as we're going through today is going to have an enormous impact. So what I'm going to do, here are the rules for today's video in a sense. First of all, they're going to be quotes that are as open as possible and as varied as possible. There's going to be one quote per chapter. There's going to be quotes that ideally are as short as possible to help memorize them, and in places they may use an ellipsis. As well as this, keywords I'll show you in red. So it's good to know a quote, but it's also good to be able to pick apart parts of a quote, and I'm going to show you how that will work momentarily. Not all the quotes are going to be from the character of Jekyll or Hyde. They're going to be deliberately from Utterson or the narrative from Utterson or other sources. As well as this, paraphrasing and getting words wrong in a quote is okay. Remember, your texts and your examinations are largely going to be in a closed book format. What I mean by that is you won't have the text in front of you. So knowing that, the exam boards are aware of that, and you are able to still get marks even if the quotes are a little bit different to how they should be. So here we go, chapter 1. My first quote I picked is, "In any extremity inclined to help rather than to reprove." This is Utterson's self-description of himself in the opening. Now, a few key words I've taken from this are "in any extremity." There's kind of a foreshadowing of the extreme nature of our antagonist, for want of a better term, in Jekyll/Hyde. And notice the idea of help as well. Utterson is trying to provide to us, the reader, this sense that he is a reliable narrator, that he's trustworthy and wants to actually provide the best for his associate. Next one, chapter 2. The quote I have selected is, "He, Jekyll, began to go wrong in mind." And notice this very deliberate description here by Utterson of him saying he went wrong in mind, that there's a kind of mental degradation and almost a sacrifice of his mind in this part. A really important point here that you can draw upon, and an important quote, I would say, from that chapter. With chapter 3, the quote I've selected is, "The large handsome face of Dr. Jekyll grew pale to the very lips, and there came a blackness about his eyes." Now, the key phrases I've selected here are not only the idea of large and handsome, these two adjectives of Dr. Jekyll, showing this kind of innocence and purity to him, but in the mention of Hyde, notice how he grows pale, almost like deathly, and the blackness about his eyes, this transformative aspect. We get this first foreshadowing or hint at the connection between Jekyll and Hyde. Moving on to chapter 4 now. "An aged and beautiful gentleman with white hair." This is the description of Sir Danvers Carew, and it's one of the only real ones Stevenson gives us of the character. Notice the use of adjectives aged, beautiful and white, all suggestive and evocative of a person who's innocent and pure and who is going to be mutilated and brutalized by Hyde. So there's a little foreshadowing of just the innocence of one of the victims. Halfway into the novella now, chapter 5, the quote I selected was, "The fog still slept on the wing above the drowned city." Here Stevenson, through Utterson, is giving us a description of our setting of London, and words like fog foreshadow an eeriness and an uncertainty, as well as the drowned city. This implication here in Stevenson's narrative that London is a gothic setting and a setting of terror and suspense as much as anything else. Now, chapter 6. "His face seemed to open and brighten." This again on Jekyll and the disappearance of Hyde. Jekyll comes out and is less reclusive. Notice these words of open and brighten. We see Jekyll transformed at the fact that Hyde, we know, has disappeared at this point. So he's becoming himself again. We see that Jekyll is more pure and better off without Hyde, for want of a better term. Into chapter 7 now, we see God forgive us, God forgive us. This quote here upon the revelations of that we are about to find out with Jekyll and Hyde. Notice this use of the idea of us. The implication here by Utterson is that everyone is involved and that everybody is to blame, that society has created the monster of Hyde as much as one man has created the monster of Hyde. We see this idea of the chaos and destruction being a societal issue and not just a personal one itself. Then we're on to chapter 8. He, Utterson, was looking on the body of a self-destroyer. When Utterson's looking at the dead corpse of Hyde, notice this phrase, a self-destroyer, doesn't even give the name, but a self-destroyer, this destructive aspect that kind of contrary to the previous quote, that he's brought it upon himself, which is quite telling, quite interesting there. Chapter 9 now, when we move into the other narratives, when the actual plot has largely ceased. Conscious at his touch of a certain icy pang along my blood, and this is from Hasty Lanyon's narrative now, when he meets Hyde. And what we see here is this idea of at his touch, the intimacy, but icy in blood, this contradiction of the two ideas, this terror that's instilled by the character upon Lanyon, further adding to the mood and atmosphere of what is a very sinister text. And lastly, for chapter 10, I stood already committed to a profound duplicity of life. This is in Jekyll's confession, for want of a better term. And we see this idea of him saying already committed, this sense that Jekyll's already doomed from the start, and this duplicity, this doubleness, this double nature of life. And that his scientific curiosity has ultimately got the better of him and has led to his ultimate self-destruction as both Jekyll and Hyde. So there's been 10 quotes for you from the novella itself. Thank you very much for joining us today and tuning in. We are available on Twitter at LitGuig and on Instagram at GuigLit. So please feel free to like, share and subscribe as always. Really appreciated. Hope you have a wonderful week. Stay tuned for tomorrow's 100 subscriber special as well, as promised. And until next time, take care, all the very best, and bye-bye.